What happens if I have a teenager that lives with me? Do I have to tell my insurance company that?
Well, the most important thing that you always want to make sure when you're applying for an application of insurance, when you're speaking with your insurance agent, is to be completely honest. There's been tons of cases, and this isn't really in our world, but to protect your own family, just as we discussed in the event that you're in an accident, you also want to protect yourself and your assets in case that you or a loved one is in an accident that they are at fault for. A lot of people don't realize that in most insurance policies, there's a provision where you need to list all, not only licensed drivers, but also drivers that are able to get their license within the next year. So that's a very big common mistake that people often miss, where they say, well, it's just me and my wife, we're the only ones who have licenses, and they don't realize that their 15 and 2-month-year-old is about to have their license, and their failure to list them on the policy could result in the policy being canceled.
Or their failure to disclose them can result in the policy being canceled. They'll return you your premiums, but then the purpose of having insurance is nullified by not carefully reading the information that they're asking.
And the teenage driver and somebody living in your house, that's, even if there's cases where even if you're saying, my son or daughter will not drive until they turn 18. I am not going to allow them to have a license. They don't have a learner's permit. The fact that they legally would be able to have a license could void coverage, even if you say, hey, he's never going to drive. Now, an insurance policy, this is why you have to be so honest with your insurance agents and give them all the information, because something that you may not think is important can end up becoming very, very important and can harm you financially in a lot of ways. It's called a material misrepresentation. Essentially, the insurance companies, if they will scan through your insurance policy, if you are involved in an accident and you're at fault, and if there's any piece of information that you gave on that application that is considered a material misrepresentation, which essentially means had the insurance company known about this fact, they would have charged you a different premium. Now, maybe they would have only charged you an extra $5 a month, still a material misrepresentation, and that can void coverage. And what's so important about that is that if you have a 15-year-old, you forget to list him on your policy, he turns 16, he's out driving your car with your express permission, and he causes a horrendous accident, and all of a sudden you get sued because you're the owner of the vehicle and you gave your 16-year-old permission to drive, all of a sudden you're responsible for that accident. And guess what? Your insurance company writes you a letter and says you failed to disclose your 15-year-old child. You no longer have coverage. You're on your own.
And that kind of circles into the information you give your attorney also. Make sure you're truthful. Make sure you give them everything that, not that you think is important, but give them all the facts. Tell them all the information, whether you believe it to be important or not. Something you don't believe may be important, may be very, very essential to prosecuting your case.
Yeah, it's just like when you go to a doctor, the fact that your pinky hurts may not seem relevant to the reason you're in there for the visit, but for that doctor with his experience going to medical school and treating patients might say, well, your pinky hurting in conjunction, with this shoulder injury tells me that we need to run extra tests. There might be something serious here. So, with anything throughout life, whether it be insurance agents, doctors, attorneys, any sort of professionals, it's always best to be upfront, honest, and give them more information than you may find necessary or relevant.
Because a lot of times, as attorneys, we're relying on the information that is provided to us, and the doctors are relying on the information that's provided to them to base an opinion. So if there's information that we don't know, our opinion may change. If a client tells me X, Y, and Z are the facts, but I really find out something later, my opinion may have completely changed based on the information that I was provided. But those tools, they can only use the tools that we have by giving us all that information.
Yeah, and without a complete and a complete assessment and evaluation of all the information at hand, that can change our opinion of, hey, let's settle this case right now, we need to get out of it, to, hey, this is a great jury trial case, there's no way we're settling it, we're taking it the distance. So it's extremely important to, you know, give all the information that you have, not only to your attorneys to help you with your own case, but also when you're applying for your own insurance to protect you in the event that you're involved in an accident and someone ends up coming after you or one of your family members.